As winter approaches, and it looks set to be a harsh one, the realm of the Seven Kingdoms has been plunged into an unprecedented political crisis. The main families of this feudal system have been jockeying to expand their influence over King's Landing, where the king sits upon the Iron Throne. Internal wars and external threats from the north and east are signs that winter is coming. But how did it come to this? What are the roots of the crisis on the continent of Westeros? It all began with the death of Robert Baratheon. Seated on the Iron Throne for 17 years, he brought stability to the kingdom. His death led to the first crisis, the War of the Five Kings. Upon Robert's death, his son Joffrey succeeded to the throne. But his parentage was questioned. Robert's widow, Cersei Lannister, had in fact conceived Joffrey with her own brother. As a result, many pretenders contested his accession and claimed the throne controlled by the House of Lannister. Firstly, there are Robert's two brothers. The youngest, Renly Baratheon, made an alliance with the powerful House of Tyrell and prepared an army to march on King's Landing. However, just before the assault, his own brother, Stannis Baratheon, had him killed and takes over preparations for the offensive on the capital by the sea. The attack ended in defeat at the hands of the House of Lannister, which leads them to retreat. Meanwhile, the self-proclaimed King of the North, Robb Stark, is leading his troops to the capital. He wants to avenge the death of his father, the former King's Counsel, executed by the bloodthirsty Joffrey. His advance is halted when he's betrayed and executed by former allies Frey and Bolton, who ally themselves with the House of Lannister. Another self-proclaimed king, Balon Greyjoy, takes advantage of the power vacuum to invade the north, before being pursued by the House of Bolton. Ultimately, the House of Lannister emerges victorious from the First War. But quickly, everything changes. King Joffrey is assassinated along with his grandfather and first councillor Tywin, the charismatic head of the family. These two deaths plunged the House of Lannister into turmoil. Tommen, the younger brother of Joffrey, succeeds to the throne. But young and inexperienced, he's strongly influenced by his wife, Margaery Tyrell. And it's no coincidence. The Tyrell family orchestrated Joffrey's assassination to position themselves in the highest ranks thanks to the marriage of Margaery. To counter this maneuver, Cersei Lannister, the mother of Tommen, turns to a strict religious order, the Sparrows. She gives full control to remove the unbelievers from power, notably the Tyrells. The scheme works. Margaery and her brother are imprisoned, but she falls foul of her own game. Accused of incest, she's sentenced to prison and humiliated. In complete control, the ultra-conservative Sparrows encounter an economic crisis. The gold mines upon which the Lannisters built their fortune are exhausted, and the colossal debts the Crown holds to the Iron Bank of Braavos are growing every day. The weakening of the Lannisters' power in King's Landing is accompanied by tensions in the rest of Westeros. In Dorne, to the south, an alliance through marriage with the House of Martell, historically hostile to the Lannisters, is shattered. The Prince of Dorne's brother is killed in King's Landing. In response, the sister of King Tommen, who is promised in marriage to the heir Prince Martell, is poisoned, opening the way to possible reprisals. The former Master of Coin of King's Landing, Peter Baelish, is playing a double game. He pledges his allegiance to the Lannisters, while in secret he's seeking to renew an alliance between the Vale, which he manages for the Lannisters, and the North, where the heir apparent, Sansa Stark, is under his control. In the past, the alliance between these two territories has already overthrown the central power of King's Landing. In the north, the House of Bolton also pledged their loyalty to the Lannisters. But more and more each day, they impose their own authority violently to keep control of this strategic territory. Their strength is consolidated when they halt the offensive of Stannis Baratheon. The pretender to the throne, who gathered his forces in the north of Westeros, planned to conquer Winterfell, the local capital, before descending on King's Landing. But his army, ill-prepared, is massacred. Above these internal quarrels, two other much larger threats put the realm's very existence in peril. In the north, Westeros is closed off by a gigantic wall of ice. Watched over by the Brothers of the Night Watch, this great barrier must protect the continent from the White Walkers, supernatural creatures linked to the coming of winter. It also separates the Seven Crowns of the Wildlings, a rebellious tribe who regularly lead raids beyond the wall. As winter approaches, the advance of the White Walkers forces them to flee en masse southwards, where they have a violent confrontation with the Night Watch. After a first battle, the new commander contemplates a new alliance with the Wildlings to prevent the advance of the White Walkers. A decision questioned by his men, who then dispose of him. Finally, in the east in Essos, Daenerys, the heir of the House of Targaryen, which ruled over the realm before the House of Baratheon, is preparing her return to Westeros. She has two major advantages. Firstly, a brotherhood of all-powerful dragons, the first to reappear in centuries, and then a large army which she formed by freeing the slave cities of the continent. But since she's exercised power in the city of Meereen, she's confronted by an insurrection, hostile to her abolitionist ideas. Barely escaping death, Daenerys flees and finds herself in Dothraki territory, captured by nomad warriors she previously ruled over. Her return to Westeros, where the dragon's fire could overcome the White Walkers, appears to be compromised. The infighting, civil war, and threats along the frontiers weighs heavily on the realm. All the while, winter is coming.